All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. I believe, did we leave off yesterday with Shlishis or Revius? Shlishis, right? Okay, excellent. So let's just remember again in Perek Beis of Shaar Habitachon, what we are focusing on over here is in this chapter, the 7 criteria necessary for one to be able to place their complete bitachon, their complete sense of belief and faith in another. So I'm sorry. So we are continuing in Meretz Hashem. We are up to the 3rd of the 7 criteria. Vashlishis. Shechazak lo yinutzach ba'asher hu chavetz. So I'll say, so criteria number 3, remember again, so these are the 7 criteria that an entity or a person must meet in order for me, I'm just going to use me, in order for me to be comfortable placing my complete bitachon. Remember again, we defined bitachon in chapter 1 as being the ability to put my complete trust and have a complete sense of security that this person or this entity is going to take care of me in every single way. So criteria number 3, in order for me to place my bitachon in someone, is ultimately again that the person be strong. And not just strong, chazak, right? Completely strong. Lo yinusach ba'asher hu chavetz. Ultimately, no one else could overcome him when he wants to accomplish something, so that his strength is absolutely complete. And therefore, again, nothing could stop him from executing my will. Because if the entity that I want to believe in ultimately, again, is weak, and therefore doesn't have the complete ability to execute on everything I need, then ultimately, again, I cannot feel a sense of security from that entity. Now, even if the person or the entity fulfills the prior criteria that we discussed, namely again that the entity has or the person has compassion, pity, and love for me, because at the end of the day, if the person does not have complete strength, then they will not be able to come through for me in every circumstance. The so we'll say, so therefore, criteria number 3 is that in order for me to believe in someone, to have bitachon in someone, that's someone. Now we'll say again, I just want to be clear because we're using the word someone, because remember, what's the goal of this parak? The Mechaber already told us in the introduction what's the goal. The goal is to outline the 7 criteria and then to highlight how no human being reaches that criteria. Now again, or satisfies that criteria, or satisfies those criteria. So remember again, so right now we're phrasing it in a way as another person. So in order for me to place my bitachon in another person, so criteria number 3 is absolute strength. Absolute strength. Again, shi'eh chazak. Now again, remember in this context, absolute strength represents what? The ability to actualize one's goals in any situation. So in other words, if I'm going to place my strength in someone, my bitachon in someone, I want to know that they could come through in every single scenario. Meaning what? There is nothing which could prevent them from doing whatever it is they want to do. That's criteria number 3. Because, again, he says the converse is, because if the person, or in this case, right, and the person is not chazak, the person is not strong, then how could I have a sense of bitachon? How could I believe in something that I know can't always come through? He goes on, he says, because if the so ultimately, again, when a person has these first 3 criteria, again, so a person possesses this rachmanas, all right, we spoke about before, plus chozek, plus strength, then bitachon alav yoser roi. Then ultimately, again, it is appropriate or it is fitting that I place my trust in that person. So criteria number 3, what's that criteria number 3? Ultimately, again, chazak, to be strong. Fine. Criteria 4. Revius. So I'll say, what is the 4th criteria in order for me to have bitachon in someone? Shiyeh yodea ba'anfei to'alas haboteach alav. So I'll say, listen to this. It's actually very interesting. So literally translated, Shiyeh yodea that the person I'm putting my trust in, he has to know all of the ways in which he can benefit me. Right? He knows all of the ways, right? So in other words, let me say a little bit differently. Some of these things don't translate as well. So in other words, the person I'm placing my faith in knows all of the ways in which I can benefit from him. Or to say a little bit differently, knows all of the ways in which he can confer benefit upon me. So in other words, if I'm going to place my trust in someone, I want to know that that person knows all the ways in which he can confer benefit upon me. V'lo yale mimenu mashu tov lo b'nistra b'nira. And ultimately, again, he knows all that's good for me. He knows the revealed things that are good for me, the hidden things that are good for me. He knows everything that is good for me. And ultimately, again, he knows what's going to help me in every single situation. Because we'll say, if the person I want to put my bitachon in this doesn't know everything that's ultimately good for me, I can't feel secure. I can't feel. In other words, say, or in other words, that in order for me to place my bitachon in someone, criteria number 4 says that I have to know that this person understands everything that is for my benefit. He understands everything that is good for me, everything which can benefit from me. Because if this person doesn't know everything that's good for me, then I can't feel a sense of security placing my bitachon in them. The Kaisheris Kaptsu Kolbo. So ultimately, again, now again, he's doing like a little bit of a review over here. Therefore, if we possess all 4 of these qualities, then ultimately, if Kasher is Kaptsu Bo, so therefore, when the person who I believe in, who I want to place my bitachon in, has these first 4 criteria. Number 1, daito b'ta'alasov, right? Ultimately, again, the individual knows everything that's good for me. V'yechalto bahen, he has the ability to go and execute on everything. V'rov hashkachaso, he pays complete attention to me. V'chem lasso alav, sense of empathy. Yechazak bitrono bo milbito safek. Ultimately, again, I'll place my trust in that individual. Okay, fine. So we'll say that's number 4. Right? So number 4, ultimately complete knowledge of what is good for me. Number 5, v'chamishis. What's number 5? Shemisyachid bahan hagas haboteach alov. So this is very interesting. Criteria number 5. So remember again, criteria number 5, in order for me to place my absolute bitachon in someone, that someone must satisfy the following, namely, shemisyachid bahan hagas haboteach alov, that the person I believe in has complete control over my life, complete control, right? So let's say, so in other words, that someone. If I'm going to place my belief in someone, I want to believe that they have complete hashgacha. This is a little bit different than what we saw before. Before we were talking about hashgacha in terms of like a complete knowledge. Here what we're talking about over here is that the entity that I believe in has complete control over my entire life. He says, mitrilas haviyaso, ultimately again, from the beginning, right? From the beginning of my life, right? Mitrilas haviyaso, vigidulo, viankuso, vinaaruso, ubacharuso, viyeshishaso. So what this is referring to over here is someone who has complete control of my life from the beginning, and these are the different stages of life, right? Ultimately, vigidulo, viankuso, when a child is in utero, when a child is a baby, or when it was a baby, vinaaruso, ubacharuso, through being a nar, through being a bachar, v'yeshishuso, v'ziknuso, middle age, old age, ad tachlis inyano. Literally, again, all the way until the end of one's life in this world. So we'll say, so in order for me to place my bitachon in someone or something, I need to know that this something has complete control over my life from the beginning until the end. And once ultimately again this becomes clear, Yischayev shetanuach nafsho alav v'yishayin alav. So we'll say, so it goes without saying, if criteria number 5 is met, namely, that I know with absolute certainty that someone or something has complete control of my life from the time that I am in utero, ultimately, again, until the time I die, then I will say it makes sense to place my bitachon in such an entity, or in this case, in such a person. He says, alav yishayin alav, bavor ma shekadam lo alav minatovos ha'otvos va'ta'olios hamasmidos. So we'll say, so again, remember, this is actually very interesting, because if someone really controls everything about my life, right, from the time that I'm in the womb, ultimately, again, until the time I leave this world, so first of all, I recognize all of the good that they've already bestowed upon me. Because that means if I'm here, that entity took care of me in utero. That entity took care of me in infancy, right? In Na'aros, in Bachros, in all these different stages. So first of all, there's a track record of this entity already having done good. Because of that, I can feel secure placing my complete faith in this, again, in this person. Bavor good. And ultimately, again, therefore, again, I am obligated to place my bitachon ultimately in this person. Good, that's criteria number 5. So also, criteria number 5, therefore, again, kind of stated succinctly, is that the entity in which I'm going to go ahead and have bitachon has the ability to have control over things from the beginning of my life until the end of my life. Criteria 6, Vashishis, she'inyan haboteach kulo maser biyado. So I'll say very interesting. That ultimately, again, in this case, she'inyan haboteach kulo maser biyado. So literally translated, that the entire destiny of the person be under the control of the person who I'm going to place my bitachon in. So I'll say, now, how is this different than before? Now watch this. So I will say, in criteria number 5, right? So ultimately, again, the essence really was like control. In other words, that the thing I'm going to place, or the person I'm going to place bitachon on, has control over my life from beginning to end. Criteria number 6 is that the entity that I'm going to place my bitachon in has control over my life to the exclusion of anything else. In other words, no one or nothing else has control over this individual. So therefore, no one has the ability to hurt me or to cause damage to me independent of the person in whom I place my bitachon in. We'll say here the distinction, right? In number 5, so I'll say, for example, I could have control over something, but that doesn't mean that what? Other people also don't exert an influence. So in number 5, it's a belief that the person who I have my bitachon in ultimately exerts an incredible control from beginning to end. In criteria number 6 is, and no one else has that control. No one else has the ability to go and show us. We'll have to stop over here for today. I know we're running a little bit behind the schedule. But in Meretz Hashem, we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up with 6 and 7. And in Meretz Hashem, catch up catch up tomorrow. That'll be the Shaar Habitachon.